We invited just one nephew to our wedding and left out his twin baby sisters. Now the in-laws are threatening to pull a kid over it. I, 28F, am getting married to my fiancé Jake, 30M, in 3 weeks, and what should have been the happiest time of my life has turned into an absolute nightmare. I need to know if I'm completely wrong here, or if I'm taking crazy pills. Jake has a brother, Mark, 32M, who's married to Sarah, 29F. They have 3 kids, Connor, 7M, and twin girls Emma and Lily, 18 months. I've always been close to Connor. He was the ring bearer at Mark and Sarah's wedding. He calls me Aunt Claire, and honestly, he's like the little brother I never had. The twins are adorable too, but they're still in that phase where they're basically tiny tornadoes of chaos. When Jake and I started planning our wedding, we initially wanted it to be completely child-free. We're having it at this gorgeous vineyard venue. There's going to be an open bar, late-night dancing, the whole 9 yards. It's not exactly a kid-friendly environment, and frankly, we wanted one night where we could celebrate with our friends and family without worrying about diaper changes or meltdowns. But then Connor asked me, with those big puppy dog eyes, if he could come to our wedding. He said he wanted to see me become his real aunt, even though I've been with Jake for 4 years. My heart just melted. Jake felt the same way. Connor has always been special to both of us. So we made an exception. One exception. Connor would be our only child guest. Here's where it gets complicated. When we told Mark and Sarah about our decision, Sarah immediately asked about the twins. I explained that we were keeping it to just Connor since he's old enough to understand and participate in the ceremony. Plus, he has a special relationship with both of us. The twins are still so young that they wouldn't even remember being there. Sarah's face went completely cold. She said it wasn't fair to exclude her daughters while including her son. I tried to explain our reasoning, that Connor is older, that we have a special bond with him, that the twins would probably be miserable at a late-night adult party anyway. But Sarah wasn't having it. So you're telling me that my daughters aren't important enough to be at their uncle's wedding? She said. But their brother is? I told her that wasn't what we were saying at all. We love all 3 kids, but we had to draw the line somewhere, and Connor was our one exception to the no-kids rule. That's when Sarah exploded. She accused me of playing favorites, of discrimination against her daughters, and said I was driving a wedge between the siblings. She said that if Connor goes but the twins don't, she'll be forced to explain to them when they're older why they weren't wanted at Uncle Jake's wedding. Mark tried to mediate, saying he understood our position and that maybe they could get a babysitter for the twins while Connor comes. But Sarah shot that down immediately. She said it was all or nothing. Either all 3 kids are invited, or none of them come. Then she delivered the ultimatum. If you don't invite Emma and Lily, then Connor isn't coming either. We're a family and we don't leave anyone behind. I was stunned. Jake looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Connor wasn't even part of this conversation. He was playing in the next room, but Sarah was essentially holding his attendance hostage unless we completely changed our wedding plans. I tried one more time to reason with her. I pointed out that the twins are barely 18 months old and won't remember any of this. The wedding goes until midnight, way past their bedtime. There will be alcohol everywhere and loud music. Other family members with young children had graciously accepted that it was a child-free event. Connor is old enough to actually participate and enjoy the celebration. Sarah just kept repeating that we were playing favorites and that she wouldn't explain to her daughters why they were excluded from family events. The conversation ended with Sarah storming out, saying we had made our choice and that we'd have to live with the consequences. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, the situation has only gotten worse. Mark has been trying to stay neutral, but I can tell he's caught in the middle. He's called Jake a few times to try to find a compromise, but every suggestion gets shut down by Sarah. She won't budge from her all-or-nothing position. Meanwhile, Connor keeps asking Jake when he gets to come try on his wedding outfit. We were planning to get him a little suit to match the groomsmen. Jake doesn't know what to tell him because we're not sure if he's even coming anymore. Other family members have started getting involved. Jake's mom called me crying, begging me to just invite the twins to keep the peace. She said she doesn't want her family torn apart over a wedding. Jake's dad thinks Sarah is being unreasonable but also thinks we should just give in to avoid more drama. My own family thinks Sarah is completely out of line. My sister said, "It's your wedding, not a family reunion. You get to decide who comes." My parents pointed out that we're already spending a fortune on this wedding, and adding 2 toddlers, plus potentially other young kids whose parents might demand equal treatment, would mean more catering costs, child-proofing concerns, and general chaos. But here's what's really eating at me. Sarah has started bad-mouthing us to other family members. Jake's cousin told us that Sarah has been saying we don't consider Emma and Lily real family, and that we're starting our marriage by excluding children. She's making it sound like we specifically set out to hurt her daughters, when the reality is we just wanted one special exception for Connor. The worst part? Sarah has started involving Connor. According to Mark, she's been telling Connor that he might not get to come to our wedding because Aunt Claire and Uncle Jake have some rules that don't include his sisters. She's essentially making a 7-year-old feel guilty about being invited to something he was excited about. Jake is devastated. He loves his brother, but he feels like Sarah is being manipulative and holding Connor hostage to get her way. He says if this is how Sarah's going to act over our wedding, he's worried about future family events and holidays. I'm starting to question everything. Part of me wonders if I should just cave and invite the twins. It would be easier, and maybe it would preserve family harmony. But another part of me feels like if I give in now, Sarah will know she can bulldoze us anytime she doesn't get her way. And honestly, I'm hurt. I've always tried to be a good aunt to all 3 kids. I babysit them. I remember their birthdays. I take Connor to movies and museums. The idea that I'm somehow discriminating against the twins because I wanted one exception to our child-free wedding just feels so unfair. But now I'm wondering if I'm being stubborn or unreasonable. Maybe the age difference doesn't matter as much as I thought. Maybe I should have just stuck to a completely child-free wedding or invited all the kids from the start. Last night, Jake suggested we call Sarah's bluff. He thinks she won't actually keep Connor away from the wedding because it would hurt him more than us. But I'm not so sure. Sarah seems pretty committed to her position, and I don't want Connor to be collateral damage in this whole mess. So here's where we stand, 3 weeks before our wedding. We don't know if Connor is coming. Sarah is apparently telling people we're playing favorites with children. Jake's family is divided on who's right. And what should have been a celebration has turned into a source of stress and family drama. Some additional context that might matter. We're paying for this wedding ourselves, so it's not like anyone else gets a say in the budget or planning. Sarah has always been a bit dramatic, but nothing like this. Connor doesn't know about any of this drama. He just knows his mom said he might not come. We've already sent out invitations that specifically say adult reception to follow. Several other family members with young kids accepted the child-free policy without complaint. The venue has some safety concerns for toddlers, stairs, a pond, etc. I need honest opinions here. Am I the asshole for wanting to include Connor, but not his twin sisters? Should I just invite all 3 kids to keep the peace? Or is Sarah being unreasonable with her ultimatum? Update 1, 4 hours later. Wow, I did not expect this to blow up like it has. Thank you to everyone who's commented. Reading your perspectives has been really helpful, even the ones calling me TA. I wanted to clarify a few things that keep coming up in the comments. About Connor's special relationship with us. I realize this might have come across wrong. It's not that we love Connor more than the twins. We love all 3 kids. But Connor is old enough to have formed a real relationship with us. He stays overnight at our place sometimes. We take him to baseball games. He helps Jake work on cars in the garage. The twins are still babies. They're adorable and we love them, but our relationship with them is obviously different than with a 7-year-old who can actually interact and communicate with us. About the all-or-nothing approach. Several people have asked why Sarah won't consider alternatives like bringing the twins for just the ceremony or having a babysitter at the venue. We actually suggested both of these options. Sarah's response was that it sends the wrong message to have some kids there and not others, period. About other family members. Yes, Jake's sister has 2 young kids, ages 3 and 5, and they're not invited either. She was completely understanding and is arranging childcare. Jake's cousin has a 2-year-old who's also not invited. No one else has made this an issue. I also want to address something several commenters pointed out. Maybe I haven't been as inclusive with the twins as I thought. Looking back, I realized that most of my individual time with the kids has been with Connor. But that's partly because he's old enough for activities like movies and museums, while the twins are still at an age where they mostly need constant supervision and naps. That said, I babysit all three kids together regularly. I brought gifts for all three at Christmas, and I've never treated the twins differently when I'm around them. But maybe Sarah perceives it differently than I do. Update 2, 1 day later. Things have gotten worse. Much worse. Jake's mom called this morning in tears. Apparently, Sarah showed up at her house last night with all three kids and gave her an ultimatum too. Either she convinces us to invite the twins, or Sarah and Mark won't be coming to the wedding at all. Yes, you read that right. Sarah is now threatening to keep not just Connor, but also Mark, Jake's brother and best man, from the wedding. Jake's mom begged us to just invite the twins. She said she doesn't care about the principal anymore. She just wants her sons and grandchildren at the wedding. She asked how we'd feel if our wedding caused a permanent rift in the family. I'll be honest, I cried after that phone call. This has spiraled so far beyond what I ever imagined. Jake and I had a long talk last night. He's furious with Sarah for escalating things, but he's also devastated at the thought of his brother missing the wedding. Mark has been his best friend his whole life. They were each other's best men when they got married. The idea of Jake standing at the altar without his brother there is breaking his heart. But here's the thing, even if we give in now, I don't know how we move past this. Sarah has shown that she's willing to hold family relationships hostage to get her way. What happens at future birthdays, holidays, or family gatherings? Will we always have to worry about her making demands and threatening to pull the family away if she doesn't get what she wants? Some of you asked why Mark isn't standing up to his wife. I think he's trying to keep the peace at home while also not wanting to miss his brother's wedding. But Sarah clearly feels more strongly about this than he does, and he's choosing his wife's position over his brother's wishes. Jake suggested we call Mark directly and ask him to come regardless of what Sarah decides. But that feels like we'd be asking him to choose between his wife and his brother, which doesn't seem fair either. I'm starting to think there's no good solution here. Update 3, 2 days later. I can't believe I'm writing this, but Sarah has now involved my future mother-in-law's church group in this drama. Apparently, Sarah went to Jake's mom's Bible study and told her side of the story. According to Jake's mom, Sarah presented it as us excluding innocent babies from a family celebration and breaking up the family over a party. Now Jake's mom is getting pressure from her church friends about how family should come first, and children are blessings that should be celebrated. Several of these women have apparently told Jake's mom that we're being selfish and that marriage is about joining families, not dividing them. Jake's mom called me sobbing yesterday. She said she feels caught between her son's happiness and the pressure from Sarah and her church community. She asked if there's any way we could make an exception for family since these aren't just random children but Jake's own nieces. I pointed out that Connor is also Jake's family and Sarah is essentially punishing him for our decision. But Jake's mom said maybe Connor would understand if we explained that we couldn't invite just one of the kids. This suggestion made me so angry I had to hang up the phone. We're talking about a 7-year-old who's been looking forward to this wedding for months. Connor has been telling his friends at school about being at Uncle Jake's wedding. Jake's mom wants us to break this little boy's heart because his mother is throwing a tantrum. Jake is barely speaking to his family at this point. He feels like everyone is caving to Sarah's manipulation instead of supporting our very reasonable boundary. But the pressure is getting to both of us. Last night, Jake asked me if I think we should just elope. He said maybe we should cancel the whole wedding and just go to the courthouse, then have a small reception later when all this drama dies down. Part of me is tempted. We've spent months planning this wedding, thousands of dollars, and it's supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. Instead, it's become a source of constant stress and family fighting. But then I think about all our friends and family who are excited to celebrate with us. My grandparents are flying in from across the country. Jake's army buddies are taking leave to be there. My college friends have bought dresses and arranged babysitters. Should we let Sarah's behavior ruin what should be a beautiful celebration? I called my own mom for advice, and she said something that stuck with me. Don't let someone else's inability to handle boundaries become your emergency. She pointed out that we set a reasonable boundary, child-free wedding with one exception, and Sarah chose to escalate it into a family crisis. That's on Sarah, not on us. But I'm still struggling. Is being right worth potentially losing Jake's relationship with his brother and nephew? Update 4, 3 days later. We made a decision. After talking to a family counselor, yes, we're getting counseling over a wedding invitation, that's how bad this has gotten. Jake and I decided to stick to our original plan. The counselor helped us see that this isn't really about the twins or even the wedding. It's about Sarah establishing a pattern of control and manipulation within the family dynamic. If we cave now, we're essentially teaching her that she can hold family relationships hostage whenever she doesn't like a decision we make. The counselor also pointed out that Connor is being used as a pawn in an adult conflict, which isn't fair to him. By changing our decision now, we'd be teaching him that his excitement and happiness don't matter when adults are fighting. So Connor is still invited. The twins are not. If Sarah chooses to keep Connor home because of this, that's her choice, but we won't be bullied into changing our wedding to accommodate her demands. We called Mark last night to tell him our final decision. The conversation didn't go well. Mark said he understood our position but that Sarah is really hurt by what she sees as us playing favorites with her children. He said Sarah feels like we're setting a precedent where Connor gets special treatment because he's older and the twins get left out because they're inconvenient. I asked Mark point blank, "Do you want to be at our wedding?"
He was quiet for a long time.
Then he said, "Of course I do. You're my brother, and I love you both. But I also have to live with my wife and protect my family." Jake said, "Connor is your family too, and you're choosing to let Sarah hurt him to avoid dealing with her behavior." The conversation ended with Mark saying he'd talk to Sarah one more time, but he didn't sound hopeful. Jake's mom called this morning. She's no longer crying, but she sounds exhausted. She said she's talked to her pastor about the situation, and he reminded her that families sometimes have to make hard choices about boundaries. Apparently, not everyone in her church group was on Sarah's side once they heard the full story. Several of the women pointed out that Sarah was being manipulative by involving the church in a private family matter. Jake's mom said she's going to support our decision, even if it means Sarah and her family don't come to the wedding. She said she's tired of walking on eggshells around Sarah and that maybe it's time Sarah learned she can't always get her way by creating drama. This felt like a huge weight off my shoulders. Having Jake's mom on our side makes this so much easier. But I still feel sick thinking about Connor potentially missing the wedding because of his mother's behavior. Update 5, 5 days later. Plot twist. Mark showed up at our apartment last night. Alone. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. He asked if we could talk, and the three of us sat in our living room for over 2 hours. Mark apologized for letting things get this far. He said he's been trying to keep peace in his household, but he's realized that Sarah's behavior has crossed a line. He said watching Connor get excited about the wedding and then seeing Sarah crush that excitement has been heartbreaking. But here's the kicker. Mark revealed that this isn't the first time Sarah has done something like this. Apparently, last year, when Jake's parents wanted to take Connor on a special grandfather-grandson fishing trip for his birthday, Sarah demanded that the twins be included too. When Jake's dad explained that the twins were too young for an overnight camping trip, Sarah kept the whole family home and told Connor that Grandpa didn't want to spend time with all his grandchildren. Mark said there have been other instances too, times when Sarah has used the kids as leverage to get her way or punish family members who don't cater to her demands. "I've been telling myself that she's just being protective of the twins," Mark said. "But the truth is, she's using them as weapons, and it's not fair to any of the kids." Jake asked what this meant for the wedding. Mark said he's going to be there, with or without Sarah. He said Connor is going to be there too, because Connor has been looking forward to it and doesn't deserve to be punished for adult drama. "What about Sarah?" I asked. Mark sighed. "I told her that I'm taking Connor to the wedding. If she wants to come, she's welcome. If she doesn't, that's her choice. But I'm not letting her manipulate our family anymore." Apparently, Sarah did not take this well. She accused Mark of choosing his brother over his wife and said he was teaching their son to disrespect his mother. She's currently staying at her sister's house with the twins. Mark said he hopes she'll come around before the wedding, but if she doesn't, he and Connor will still be there. Asked if he was okay with potentially damaging his marriage over this. Mark said, "My marriage was already being damaged by Sarah's need to control everyone around her. At least this way, I'm standing up for what's right instead of just enabling her behavior." Jake hugged his brother for the first time in weeks. "I almost cried seeing them reconnect. But I also feel terrible that our wedding has potentially caused a marriage crisis." Mark assured us that the problems in his marriage go deeper than our wedding situation, but still. Update 6, 1 week later. The wedding is in exactly 1 week, and the family drama has somehow gotten even more complicated. Sarah's sister, Emma, called me yesterday. I wasn't expecting this. Emma and I have never been particularly close, but we've always been cordial at family gatherings. Emma said Sarah has been staying with her since the fight with Mark, and she wanted to give me Sarah's perspective on everything. According to Emma, Sarah feels like Jake's family has never fully accepted her. She says that when Connor was born, everyone made a big fuss over the first grandchild, but when the twins came along, the excitement was more subdued because there were already grandchildren around. Emma said Sarah has always felt like Connor gets more attention from Jake's family because he's older and easier to deal with, while the twins get treated like afterthoughts. I told Emma that I didn't think that was true, but she said Sarah has been keeping track of things like how many times Jake's parents babysit Connor versus the twins, who gets mentioned more in family photos posted on social media, which child gets more individual attention at family gatherings, how much money gets spent on birthday gifts for each kid. Honestly, hearing this made me realize that Sarah has been building up resentment for a long time, and our wedding invitation situation was just the final straw. Emma said Sarah sees our decision to invite only Connor as confirmation of all her fears, that Jake's family considers Connor more important than her daughters. I asked Emma what Sarah wanted from me at this point. Emma said Sarah would be willing to come to the wedding if we publicly acknowledge that we made a mistake by not inviting the twins initially. Make a special mention during the reception about how much we love Emma and Lily. Promise that future family events will include all the kids equally. I told Emma that we weren't going to publicly apologize for our decision, especially since we don't think we did anything wrong. The other requests felt reasonable, but the apology felt like admitting guilt when we were just trying to have the wedding we wanted. Emma said she understood, but that Sarah feels like she needs some kind of acknowledgement that her feelings were hurt. Later that evening, Jake and I talked about Emma's call. We decided to reach out to Sarah directly. I texted Sarah, "I know you're hurt, and that was never our intention. We love all 3 kids. Connor got invited because of his age and our specific relationship with him, not because we love him more than the twins. I hope you can find a way to be there to celebrate with us." Sarah texted back, "It's too late for that. You made your choice when you decided my daughters weren't worth including. Actions have consequences. So that's that, I guess." The good news is that Mark and Connor are definitely coming. Connor is so excited about his wedding suit. We took him shopping yesterday that it's impossible not to smile around him. He keeps practicing walking slowly, like we showed him for the ceremony. Mark seems more relaxed than he has in weeks. He said he and Sarah are going to couples therapy after the wedding to work through their issues, but for now, he's focused on being there for his brother and son. Jake's parents are sad that Sarah won't be there, but they're trying to stay positive. Jake's mom said, "We can't control other people's choices. We can only control our own responses." Part of me is relieved that the drama has an end point. After the wedding, whatever happens between Mark and Sarah is their issue to work out. But part of me feels guilty that our special day contributed to a family rift. My maid of honor reminded me yesterday that we're not responsible for managing other people's emotions or relationships. We set a reasonable boundary, and Sarah chose to escalate it into a family crisis. That's on her, not on us. Still, I can't help but wonder what Thanksgivings and Christmases will look like going forward. Update 7, 3 days before the wedding. I honestly thought the drama was over, but Sarah had one more card to play. Yesterday afternoon, Connor called Jake while he was at work. Connor was crying and asked if he was still allowed to come to the wedding. Jake immediately called Mark to find out what was going on. Apparently, Sarah came by the house while Mark was at work to pick up more clothes for her and the twins. She told Connor that she heard Aunt Claire and Uncle Jake might not want him at the wedding anymore because of all the trouble with Mommy. Mark was furious. He called Sarah and told her that involving Connor in adult drama crossed a major line. Sarah said she was just being honest with Connor about why the family was fighting. When Mark told Connor that he was definitely still invited and that Mommy had made a mistake, Connor asked, "But why doesn't Aunt Claire want Emma and Lily there? Are they bad?" Mark said he did his best to explain that babies don't usually go to grown-up parties, but Connor is old enough to celebrate with the adults. But apparently Connor is now worried that his sisters are upset with him for being invited when they aren't. Jake was ready to drive over there and have it out with Sarah, but I convinced him that would just make things worse. Instead, we decided to call Connor directly. Jake and I got on speakerphone with Connor and reassured him that he is absolutely invited and we can't wait to see him at the wedding. We love Emma and Lily very much, but they're too little for the party. None of this is his fault, and he shouldn't feel bad about coming. Mommy and Daddy are working through some grown-up problems that have nothing to do with him. Connor seemed to feel better after talking to us, but the whole situation just reinforced what Mark said about Sarah using the kids as weapons in this conflict. Mark said this was the last straw for him. He's filing for temporary custody to make sure Sarah can't keep manipulating the children while they work through their marriage issues. I never imagined that our wedding would lead to a custody battle, but here we are. The wedding is in 3 days, and instead of feeling excited, I feel exhausted. Jake and I had dinner last night and barely talked about the wedding at all. We're both just drained from months of family drama. My mom flew in yesterday, and when I told her everything that had happened, she hugged me and said, "Honey, this wedding isn't about Sarah or her drama. It's about you and Jake starting your life together. Don't let her steal that joy from you." She's right, but it's hard to feel celebratory when there's so much family tension. Jake's been amazing through all of this. He's supported my decisions, stood up to his family when necessary, and never once suggested that we should have just given in to Sarah's demands. But I can see how much this has hurt him. The thought of his brother potentially getting divorced over our wedding keeps him up at night. I keep reminding myself that Mark's marriage problems existed before our wedding situation. We didn't create Sarah's manipulative behavior. We just refused to enable it. Still, I'll be glad when this is all over and we can focus on being married instead of managing family drama. Update 8, day after the wedding. We're married. And honestly, despite all the drama leading up to it, yesterday was absolutely perfect. Connor looked so handsome in his little suit, and he took his role as ring bearer very seriously. He walked down the aisle with the biggest smile, and when he handed Jake the rings, he whispered loudly, "Don't drop them, Uncle Jake," which made everyone laugh. During the reception, Connor danced with me during the father-daughter dance since he's almost like family now, he said, and charmed all of our friends with his excitement about being at a grown-up party. Mark was Jake's best man, and his speech was beautiful. He talked about how proud he was of Jake and how happy he was to welcome me officially into the family. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Jake's parents seemed to really enjoy themselves once the festivities got started. Jake's mom told me that seeing Connor so happy and excited reminded her why we made the right decision. And here's the surprising part. Sarah showed up. About an hour into the reception, Sarah walked in wearing a dress I'd never seen before. She looked nervous but determined. She found me during a quiet moment and said, "I'm sorry I'm late. I needed some time to think about what was really important." I was honestly shocked. Asked where the twins were, and she said they were with her sister.
"You were right," she said.
They would have been miserable at a party like this, and it wouldn't have been fair to them or to anyone else. Sarah said that seeing Connor get ready for the wedding that morning made her realize how much she was hurting him by creating drama around something he was excited about. She said she'd been so focused on feeling excluded that she'd lost sight of what was actually best for her children. She apologized to both Jake and me for the stress she'd caused and said She hoped we could move forward as family. I'll be honest, I was skeptical at first. After months of drama, it was hard to believe she'd had a genuine change of heart. But as the night went on, Sarah seemed genuinely happy to be there. She danced with Connor, chatted with other family members, and even complimented me on how beautiful the wedding was. When I asked her what changed her mind, she said her therapist, apparently she'd started seeing someone individually, helped her realize that her behavior had been about her own insecurities rather than protecting her children. Sarah said she'd always felt like an outsider in Jake's family, and the wedding invitation situation triggered all of those feelings. But she realized that pushing the family away wasn't going to solve anything. Mark seemed relieved, but cautious. He told me later that he's hopeful Sarah is serious about changing, but they still have a lot of work to do in couples therapy. Connor was thrilled to have both parents there, and honestly, that might have been the best part of the whole day. He kept running between Sarah and Mark, telling them about all the cool things at the wedding. As for the wedding itself, it was everything we wanted. The weather was perfect, the venue was gorgeous, and being surrounded by the people who love and support us felt incredible. Even with all the drama leading up to it, Jake and I managed to focus on each other and the commitment we were making. During our first dance, Jake whispered to me, "Was it worth all the fighting?" And I said, "Every bit of it." Looking back, I think we made the right choice by sticking to our boundaries. If we'd given in to Sarah's demands just to avoid conflict, we would have taught everyone in the family that throwing tantrums is an effective way to get what you want. Instead, by holding firm, we hopefully helped Sarah realize that she needed to address her own behavior rather than trying to control everyone else's decisions. I don't know what the future holds for Mark and Sarah's marriage, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Sarah seemed genuinely remorseful, and Mark seems committed to working things out. As for Jake and me, we're off to Hawaii for our honeymoon in a few hours, and I can't wait to spend 2 weeks focusing on nothing but being newlyweds. Final update 1 month later. I wanted to give everyone a final update on how things have settled out. Jake and I had an amazing honeymoon and came back to find that the family situation has continued to improve. Sarah has been in individual therapy and seems committed to working on her issues. She sent me a long text while we were away, apologizing again and acknowledging that she'd let her insecurities drive her to behave badly. Mark and Sarah are still in couples therapy, but Mark says they're making progress. The temporary custody situation got resolved when Sarah agreed to continue therapy and promised not to involve the kids in adult conflicts anymore. Connor has been telling everyone about the wedding and how much fun he had. He doesn't seem to have any lingering trauma from the drama, which was my biggest concern. The twins are doing well too. Sarah brought them over for dinner last weekend, and they seemed happy and healthy. Emma is starting to walk, and Lily is chattering nonstop. They're at such a cute age, and I'm glad we'll get to enjoy watching them grow up without all the family tension. Jake's parents seem relieved that everyone is getting along again. Jake's mom said that seeing the family come together at the wedding reminded her how important it is to work through conflicts instead of letting them fester. As for Jake and me, we're settling into married life and enjoying the peace and quiet after months of wedding planning and family drama. We've been talking about starting to plan family gatherings at our place, and Sarah has been enthusiastic about the idea. I've learned a lot about setting boundaries and not letting other people's emotional reactions dictate my decisions. It was hard to stand firm when everyone was pressuring us to just give in, but I think it was ultimately better for everyone involved. I also learned that sometimes family conflicts aren't really about what they appear to be about. Sarah's reaction to our wedding invitation wasn't really about the twins being excluded. It was about her deeper feelings of being an outsider in Jake's family. Once she addressed those underlying issues, the surface problem resolved itself. For anyone dealing with similar family drama around weddings or other events, my advice is: set your boundaries early and stick to them. Don't take other people's emotional reactions personally. They're usually about the other person's stuff, not your decisions. Be willing to have difficult conversations instead of avoiding conflict. Remember that you can't control other people's behavior, only your own response to it. Our wedding ended up being everything we wanted it to be, and our family is stronger now than it was before all the drama started. Sometimes conflict, as painful as it is in the moment, can lead to better understanding and healthier relationships in the long run. Thanks to everyone who commented and offered advice during this whole situation. It really helped to have outside perspectives when I was doubting myself. Connor still talks about being the ring bearer and asks when the next wedding is going to be, so he can do it again. We told him he'll have to wait until he's old enough to have his own wedding, which led to a very cute conversation about how he's going to marry his best friend from school and have a dinosaur-themed ceremony. As for future family events, we're planning Connor's 8th birthday party next month, and yes, all 3 kids are invited. Because birthday parties and weddings are very different types of events with different expectations and requirements. Jake and I have also started a tradition of individual aunt and uncle dates with Connor now that he's older, taking him to baseball games, museums, or movies. Sarah initially seemed a bit nervous about this, but after we talked about it, she realized that as the twins get older, they'll have their own special outings with us too. Different ages just call for different activities. We've also made an effort to include Sarah more in family planning. Jake's mom now calls both Sarah and me when she's organizing family dinners or holidays, which I think has helped Sarah feel more like an integral part of the family rather than someone who's always catching up on decisions that have already been made. The whole experience taught me that sometimes what looks like unreasonable behavior on the surface is actually someone's way of expressing deeper hurts or insecurities. That doesn't excuse the behavior, but understanding the root cause can help everyone move forward more constructively. Sarah recently told me that she realized she'd been so worried about her daughters being treated as less than that she'd actually created the very dynamic she was trying to prevent. By making everything a battle about equal treatment, she turned family gatherings into sources of stress instead of joy. Now, instead of keeping score of who gets what attention, she's focusing on making sure all the kids feel loved and included in age-appropriate ways. Emma and Lily are too young for movie dates, but they love playing in the kiddie pool at family barbecues. Connor is too old for some of the toddler activities, but he enjoys being a big cousin who helps keep an eye on the little ones. It's funny how much perspective can change when you stop trying to make everything exactly equal and start focusing on what actually works for each individual person. I'm writing this final update because I know a lot of people were invested in seeing how this all turned out, and I wanted to give closure to anyone who followed this whole saga. Sometimes Reddit stories don't have neat, tidy endings, but I'm happy to say that this one does. Our first Christmas as a married couple is coming up, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not worried about family drama. We're hosting dinner at our place, and Sarah has already volunteered to bring her famous green bean casserole. Connor is excited to show his cousins, Jake's sister's kids, his new train set, and the twins will probably spend most of the day napping and eating finger foods. It sounds wonderfully, beautifully normal. Jake says he's proud of how we handled everything, and honestly, so am I. We could have taken the easy way out and either canceled the wedding or given in to all of Sarah's demands. Instead, we stuck to our values while remaining open to reconciliation when Sarah was ready to approach the situation differently. Marriage, as it turns out, isn't just about the wedding day. It's about learning how to navigate complex family dynamics while supporting each other and maintaining your own boundaries. We got some good practice before we even said, "I do." For anyone currently dealing with wedding planning drama, hang in there. The wedding is just one day, but the boundaries you set and the way you handle conflict will set the tone for your entire marriage. Don't let other people's inability to respect your decisions steal the joy from your celebration. And for what it's worth, Connor still says our wedding was the best party ever and asks when we're going to have another one. We told him that's what anniversary parties are for, and now he's already planning what he's going to wear to our first anniversary celebration. Some things, thankfully, never change. Edit. A lot of people have been asking about the costs and logistics of the wedding. Since several people are planning their own weddings and dealing with similar family pressures, I thought I'd share some practical details. Our total wedding budget was about $25,000 for 85 guests. The venue was $8,000, catering was $12,000, photography was $2,500, and the rest went to flowers, music, decorations, and our outfits. We paid for everything ourselves, which I think made it easier to stick to our decisions since we weren't beholden to anyone else financially. The child-free policy saved us probably $500 to $800 in catering costs alone, since we would have had to provide kids' meals and potentially high chairs or booster seats for about 8 to 10 children if we'd invited everyone's kids. More importantly, not having a bunch of toddlers running around meant our older relatives could actually enjoy conversations without worrying about little ones getting into the pond or wandering off. Several guests commented on how relaxed and elegant the atmosphere was. The venue had some legitimate safety concerns for small children. There were stairs without railings leading down to the vineyard, a decorative pond that wasn't fenced, and the reception went until midnight with loud music and lots of alcohol. Even if we'd wanted to include young children, we would have needed to hire additional childcare staff and do some major childproofing. Connor, at 7, was old enough to understand boundaries like don't go near the water and stay where the adults can see you. He also went home with Jake's parents at 9 p.m. before things got too late and loud. The twins would have needed constant supervision and would have been miserable staying up past their bedtime. I think the key thing we learned is that fair doesn't always mean identical. Treating people fairly means considering their individual needs and circumstances, not making sure everyone gets exactly the same thing regardless of whether it makes sense for them. Connor got invited because he was old enough to enjoy and participate in the celebration safely. The twins didn't get invited because they were too young to enjoy it and would have been uncomfortable and potentially unsafe. That wasn't favoritism, that was practical decision-making based on each child's developmental stage. If we'd had the wedding during the day, or at a more kid-friendly venue, or if the twins had been older, our decision might have been different. But given the specific circumstances of our wedding, including only Connor made the most sense for everyone involved. I hope this perspective helps other couples who are struggling with similar decisions. Your wedding should reflect your values and vision, not other people's expectations or demands. Final edit. It's been really heartwarming to see how many people have shared their own wedding boundary stories in the comments. It seems like almost everyone has dealt with some version of family members who want to override the couple's decisions about their own wedding. To everyone who shared their support and validation during this whole process, thank you. Planning a wedding can be isolating when you're dealing with family pressure, and knowing that strangers on the internet thought we were making reasonable decisions really helped during the hardest parts. And to everyone who called me TA in the early comments, I genuinely appreciate those perspectives too. It made me think harder about our decisions and consider Sarah's point of view, which ultimately helped me approach the situation with more empathy even while maintaining our boundaries. Marriage is about compromise, but it's also about knowing which hills are worth dying on. This turned out to be one of those hills for us, and I'm glad we held our ground while remaining open to reconciliation. Connor starts second grade next week and has been telling his teacher all about being a ring bearer. Sarah drops him off at our place for aunt and uncle time without any drama now. The twins are walking and getting into everything, which is exhausting but adorable. Life is good. Family is complicated but worth the effort. And our wedding photos turned out beautiful. Connor's gap-toothed grin as he hands over the rings is definitely going in the family album forever.